Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. I would like to welcome you to this information session. My name is Monika Stankiewicz, and I'm the Executive Secretary of the Minamata Convention on Mercury. Today's information session is to update you on the progress of the intersessional work and inform you about the extended opportunities for your input. The Minamata Convention controls the full life cycle of mercury, from its supply to its trade, use, emissions, releases, storage, and the management of waste and contaminated sites, and the control on the use of mercury in products and industrial processes is one of the key building blocks of the Convention. Article 4 of the Convention obliges the parties to phase out the manufacture, import, and export of mercury-added products listed in Annex A, and Article 5 describes the measures that parties must take on manufacturing processes that use mercury listed in Annex B. And these articles request the conference of the parties to review the two annexes no later than 5 years after the entry into force of the Convention. And as the Convention entered into force in August 2017, the review must take place by or until 2022. Since the conference of the parties are to meet in 2021 and in 2023, it is the fourth meeting of the COP planned to be held in Bali, Indonesia in November 2021 that will do this review. COP3, held in November last year, adopted a decision on this process. It established an ad hoc expert group composed of experts nominated by the parties and invited parties to submit relevant information by the end of March this year. The decision envisaged a face-to-face meeting last June, which however could not be convened due to the pandemic situation. The ad hoc group had 3 online meetings so far and considered how to fulfill its mandate under this current challenging situation. The ad hoc group decided to extend the deadline for submission from parties and begin a series of teleconferences focusing on specific product and process categories, such as, for instance, batteries and lamps. I very much appreciate the great efforts of the ad hoc group, co-chaired by Ms. Juanetta Fordyce from Guyana and Mr. Darren Byrne from Ireland, and their innovative approach in working under the current limitations. Their work may be a model case for a new international governance on global environmental issues. And the Secretariat is happy to support the work of the group, and our common aim is to have a productive and good discussion at COP4 with input from parties and stakeholders. Before I turn to my colleague Asa Kutoda to continue with presenting the topic, I would like to note that this session is being recorded. We will take questions at the end of the presentations, and please use chat function to write your question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica, for your introduction. My name is Asa Kutoda, Senior Program Officer in charge of the scientific and technical issues at the Minamata Convention Secretariat. Building on her introduction, I'd like to explain the background of this information session a little bit more. But before doing that, I would like to repeat what Monica said about how we are going to run the meeting. If you have a question, please type it into the chat box and send to all panelists so that we all can, the Secretariat members can all see the questions and prepare for responses. We will take up these questions in the Q&A session. The presentation slides will be shared after the session. Okay, so I will briefly explain the background of this session. Article 4 of the Minamata Convention controls mercury-added products. It provides that parties shall not allow the manufacture, import, or export of mercury-added products listed in Part 1 of Annex A. It also requires parties to take measures specified in Part 2 of Annex A. Part 1 of Annex A lists certain types of batteries, switches, certain types of lamps, and so on and so forth, which must be phased out by 2020, unless parties register exemption to up to 5 years. Part 2 describes the measures to be taken to phase down the use of dental amalgam. Article 5 of the Convention controls manufacturing processes in which mercury or mercury compounds are used. It provides that parties shall not allow the use of mercury or mercury compounds in manufacturing processes listed in Part 1 of Annex B. It also requires parties to take measures specified in Part 2 of Annex B. Part 1 lists chloralkali production and acetaldehyde production. Part 2 describes the measures to be taken on the production of vinyl chloride monomer, sodium potassium methylate or ethylate, and polyurethane. These articles include provisions for their review. Paragraph 8 of Article 4 and paragraph 10 of Article 5 provide that the COP shall review Annexes A and B no later than 5 years after the entry into force of the Convention. The COP it also provides that COP may consider amendments to these annexes in accordance with Article 27. The following paragraphs provide that the COP shall take into account proposals submitted by parties for listing a product or processes in Annex A or B. Information submitted by parties pursuant to paragraph 4 and availability, technical and economic feasibility, and environmental and human health risk as benefit of alternatives. Paragraph 4 provides that parties provide the Secretariat with information on mercury-added products, processes that use mercury or mercury compounds, and their alternatives, and that the Secretariat collect, maintain, and make publicly available such information. I would also draw your attention to Article 27 that I mentioned earlier on the adoption and amendment of annexes referred to in these articles, and Article 26 that describes the procedures for amending the text or the annexes of the Convention. Paragraph 2 of Article 26 provides that proposed amendments shall be communicated to the parties by the Secretariat at least 6 months before the COP meeting. Therefore, any amendment proposed for COP4 must be circulated to the parties by the 1st May 2021. COP decision MC 3/1 specifies the process for this review to be done at COP4 to be held in November 2021, including a structured way to collect information from parties and organize and enrich the information. You see the copy of the report of COP3 held in November last year. COP3 adopted 3 decisions relating to Articles 4 and 5 and Annex A and B. I think the letter is too small, but I'm going to speak to decisions MC/3, MC 3/1, 3/2, and 3/3. 3/1 established an intersessional process for the review of Annexes A and B. This includes the establishment of an ad hoc group of experts and a roadmap for collecting submissions from parties and others on products, processes, and their alternatives, and organizing and enriching this information. Decision MC 3/2 concerns dental amalgam, which is provided for in Part 2 of Annex A. It encourages parties to take more than the 2 required measures under the convention and also specifies a process for collecting information on alternatives as separate from the decision MC3/1. Thirdly, decision MC3/3 concerns the development of a guidance document on the use of customs code to distinguish Mercury added products. Now I'm turning to my colleague Tak Anand to present some practical details of these pieces of intersessional work, including some adjustments to the current situation, extended deadlines, and opportunities for further input. But before turning to Tak, I would encourage the participants to put your question to the chat box and send it to all panelists, to which we will address one by one in the Q&A session. Thank you, and Tak, floor is yours.
Thank you, Eisaku. My name is Takafumi Anam from the Secretariat, and I also work for the technical and scientific issues under the convention. So today my presentation will cover the intersessional work related to products and processes, as mentioned, such as review of Annexes A and B, dental amalgam, and customs codes. So I will explain about the overview of COP3 decisions, the current situation, and the way forward for each intersessional work. So the first section is on the review of Annexes A and B. In decision MC3/1, COP decided to establish an ad hoc group of experts on this issue. It also requested the Secretariat to call for submissions from parties, including information on the uses of mercury in products and processes, and on the availability, technical and economic feasibility, and environmental and health risks and benefits to non-mercury alternatives. The procedure of work will be explained later in this presentation. And the COP requested the Secretariat to prepare a report on the work of the group by 30th April 2021. So about the ad hoc group of experts, according to the COP decision, the Secretariat has received 18 nominations from experts from parties through bureau members representing their region. We are expecting additional nomination from 2 regions. Co-chairs of the group were elected at the second online meeting of the group. The group has met 3 times so far, and one of the main points of discussion was on how to invite observers to the discussion. The experts with overarching expertise on products and processes, which we call them horizontal observers, were invited to join the group from the 3rd online meeting held on 1st of July. And since the information received from parties and others cover broad areas of products and processes, the group decided to hold separate group calls sessions on specific topics such as lamps, batteries, cosmetics, etc., and invite observers with specific expertise in those products and processes to the respective session. And also partner organizations such as UNEP and WHO and parties that submitted information are also invited to participate. So this table shows the roadmap set out in the decision, and the right-hand side of the table is the current plan of the work by the group. So the group has met 3 times, and the group will meet again in July to further discuss the schedule of work. The group has decided to extend the deadline for submissions from parties and other stakeholders on the review of annexes, and the extended deadline was announced at the Minamata website And also it was announced in the Executive Secretary's letter sent out on 29th of June. And as I mentioned earlier, a series of group calls on specific categories of products and processes will be held during September and October. And further scheduled work after November will be discussed by the group at the meeting in July, and we will announce the updated schedule on the Minamata website. So moving on to the issue of submissions from parties, the Secretariat has called for submissions from parties, and so far 7 submissions have been received on this issue. And as mentioned, further submissions will be accepted until the 31st of July. And to support the parties on submitting information, the ad hoc group developed templates on products and processes, including the basic structure of information requested to parties and other stakeholders. So the Word file of these templates are uploaded on the Minamata website. About submissions from non-parties and others, so far 5 submissions have been received. And as mentioned, further submissions will be also accepted until 31st of July. And non-parties and others are also recommended to use the templates developed by the experts. Now I'm moving to the section on dental amalgam. And first I would explain the overview of decision MC3/2. So in this decision, the COP encouraged parties to take more than the 2 required measures set out in Part 2 of Annex A. So this is based on the requirement in Part 2 of Annex A that parties take 2 or more of the 9 measures listed in the Annex. It also requested the Secretariat to call for submissions from parties on the implementation of any such additional measures taken by parties. In para 3, it requested the Secretariat to call for submissions from parties and other stakeholders on the availability, technical and economic feasibility, health risks and benefits of non-mercury alternatives to dental amalgam by 1st of July this year. It further requested the Secretariat to compile the submissions on non-mercury alternatives on dental amalgam by 1st of December this year and prepare a document including information received from parties and others on the above mentioned issues by 30th April 2021. Parties and others were invited to provide information on the availability and other related information on the non-mercury alternatives to dental amalgam. And by the deadline 1st of July, 6 submissions have been received from parties. And upon request from some parties, further submissions will be accepted until 15th of August. These submissions and the extended deadline are posted on the intersessional web page of the Minamata Convention. From other organizations, 21 submissions have been received so far. And as mentioned, further submissions will be accepted until 15th of August. Next, about the call for information on implementation of any additional measures taken by parties beyond the 2 measures listed in Part 2 of Annex A shown in the table in the right. No, no deadline was specified in decision MC3/2, but since the decision requested the Secretariat to prepare an information document, including the compilation of submissions by 30th April 2021, the Secretariat has announced that the deadline for this submission will be until 31st January 2021. And so far, 3 submissions have been received, and those are posted on the Minamata website. And last but not least, I will move to the issue on customs codes. When the decision, COP2 requested the Secretariat to suggest approaches for customs codes to identify and distinguish non-mercury added products and mercury added products listed in Annex A, including approaches for their possible harmonization, and also in collaboration with products partnership area and in consultation with relevant organizations. In response to the request, a report was developed and presented to COP3. In the report, the following 4 basic approaches have been identified. Option A would build on the established WCO structure and formal procedures. In this approach would imply automatic international harmonization of the codes, since all countries using the HS system would be obliged to adopt the same HS codes under the WCO process. Option B allows national governments and regional entities to add 2 or more digits to an existing 6-digit HS codes on their own initiative. And approach C would imply the development of interim statistical codes of more than 6 digits in the near term, some of all of which could ultimately be superseded by 6-digit HS codes created according to the formal WCO procedure. And under option D, parties are encouraged to work individually or to collaborate as they consider best with regard to the development and use of customs codes, along with any other tools such as regulations, monitoring procedures, labeling requirements, or adding information to customs code to ensure that customs and market surveillance authorities are fully aware of the import and export restrictions on mercury added products. This figure shows the visual representation of the manner in which national and regional subdivisions are built upon the numbering system used by the WCO harmonized system. In the table on the right-hand side shows the example of codes used in Uruguay's harmonized tariff system based on the WCO harmonized system. So upon consideration of the presented report, COP requested the Secretariat to draft a guidance document on the work, including a list of possible customs nomenclature codes of more than 6 digits for products listed in Annex A, and a compilation of examples provided by national experts of customs nomenclature codes of more than 6 digits currently used by parties for mercury added products not listed in Annex A, and examples of good practice that would supplement the use of HS codes. And also the COP requested the Secretariat to prepare a report including the above mentioned elements and submit it to COP4 for its consideration. And COP also requested the Secretariat to circulate an open call to parties and stakeholders to identify experts to participate in the open-ended process and to call for submissions by 31st March 2020 on the relevant information of work. And so far, one party has submitted information on this issue, and the Secretariat will work with the Global Mercury Partnership to develop a guidance document. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you, and I'm handing back to Eisaku now.
Thank you, Tak. And our plan was to start responding to questions after Tak's presentation, and I was going to put together what information, what questions have been asked. But so far, I have seen no question. I hope we receive some questions while I'm providing some closing remarks. Some additional remarks on Tak's presentation, and I would like to highlight a few points, especially with regard to the review of Annex A and B. And firstly, this review of Annex A and B is a party-led process. It is the conference of the parties that undertake the review, and the first submissions were invited from parties, and the COP decision says that the submitting parties should submit further information based on what the Secretariat put together. Information from non-parties, NGOs, industry, and so on and so forth are expected to enrich and enrich these information, and so are the observers who participate in the meetings of the ad hoc group and group calls that take place in September-October timeframe. So we look forward to good information that will support this party-led process. Secondly, it is the expert group, ad hoc expert group, that proposed the extension of the deadline until 31st of July. At the first online meeting of the ad hoc group, several members stated that their governments had intended to submit information, but were not able to do so from various reasons. The group agreed to extend deadlines, although it makes the group's work schedule very, very tight. The group also requested the Secretariat to reach out to parties about this extended deadline, and this is one of the reasons why the Executive Secretary sent out a letter on the progress of work on the 29th of June, and this is why we do this information session. Thirdly, the current plan to convene a series of group calls is an alternative approach to the June face-to-face meeting that didn't take place. The group is about to agree on meeting online every week in September and October. The group is inviting observers with specific knowledge beyond the limit of 10 observers. The ad hoc group is really thinking out of the box, and we feel that we are exploring a new modality of intersessional work. Fourthly and lastly, the submissions we received so far are not only helpful in the review process, but also contains very useful information on products, processes, and their alternatives. And these information are very useful for parties to implement the Articles 4 and 5 to limit the manufacture, import use, or the use of mercury in manufacturing processes. For example, the submissions from the European Commission includes a review of technical information on various products and processes. And the submissions from the United States includes a mercury inventory under the Toxic Substances Control Act. And these submissions are available from the website. submissions of such information would be very welcome, and the Secretariat will make efforts to facilitate such information exchange pursuant to Articles 4, 5, and 17. Having said this, I'm going to look at the questions at the in the chat box. I asked Tak to watch the chat box and
Yes.
provide some summary of the questions.
Yes, thank you, Isaku. We have received one question on customs code. So the question is, can you share some examples of Mercury products not listed in Annex A for which customs codes are to be established? So do you have any points on this one?
Well, what COP requested was to consider the approaches for using customs code for distinguishing mercury added products and non-mercury added products, and we understand that the intention was to distinguish the mercury added products under article under Annex A and those that are not listed in the Annex A. So the examples we have seen is for example about TAC showed an example of Uruguay, which is about the dividing the liquid thermometer into the liquid thermometers using mercury and those that did not use mercury, such as alcohol and so on. And this is about the mercury added products listed in the Annex A. We do not have any example of mercury added products or the products that contains mercury but not listed in Annex A. For example, the fluorescent lamps that contains more mercury than the threshold values specified in the Annex A is a mercury added products and Annex A, but those with below the threshold are not regulated. But we are not aware of such customs codes distinguishing these products. So this is something we need to address in the guidance document that we are going to develop in cooperation with the Global Mercury Partnership.
Thank you, Isaku. I also have another question from about the mercury use in traditional or religious practices. So in some countries, mercury are used in traditional medicines, and this mercury use in traditional or religious practices is excluded in the Annex A of the convention. But does the Secretariat have any information on the use of mercury in these kind of traditional or religious medicines? And is there any plan to look into these kind of use in several countries?
Thank you for that important question. And we had another information session last week that covered that explained the 2020 deadlines of mercury, the phase out of mercury added products, and there was a quite detailed explanation about the the exclusion, exemption, and so on and so forth. And as you point out, Annex A starts. Um, uh, uh, we presented. We explained part 1 and part 2 of the Annex A, but in fact, Annex A has part 0, which is before part 1, which it says that the following products are excluded from this annex, and the products used in traditional religious practices are listed as exclusions. So the negotiators of the Minamata Convention agreed to exclude these from the control under Minamata Convention. And since the Annex A is under review now, parties that are interested in reviewing this provision, exclusion provisions, may propose some review of this provision. But so far, as we have seen the submissions from parties, I think we haven't seen any mention to this exclusion provisions. But we will we will have a closer look, and the expert group will review the submissions.
Thank you, Isaku. I also have a question about the relation between the dental amalgam issue and the HS codes. So this says that the dental amalgam should also have a unique HS code, and this will assist in identifying diversion to the ASGM sector. So what would be the mechanism to have dental amalgam included in the HS system? So over to you, Isak.
Well, I don't think I can respond to that question because I do not have a specific knowledge about how the dental amalgam is described in the customs code. So I think we'll look into it. In the past information sessions, we have put together the questions and answers and posted on the web. So I will look into that.
Yes, thank you, Isaku. I think this is so far. This is the all the question that I have so far.
Well, the last question in chat box says if products do not have mercury and mercury and are not in Annex A, Article 4 does not apply. Sorry. Well, I'm so sorry. I do not understand this particular question from Mr. Kwaja. And I think was maybe I missed this, but have you set the schedule of the calls in September and October just to make sure I save the date? And this the expert group is going to discuss the schedule in the at the next online meeting planned later this month. The group discussed it on the basis of the rough schedule or prepared by the Secretariat, starting with the batteries and lamps in early part of September, going to cosmetics and process Annex B processes, and also there was a suggestion about the satellite propellants. So this was one of the issues that may uh, was having one session, but there was a proposal to add some topics or divide some topics that were chunked together. So we will come up with a revised schedule, and I hope that the group will agree later this month. Since this is a meeting of the ad hoc group, this is not a publicly open meeting. This session, this information session is a public information session that are open to anybody who registers. But the group call session will be a session will be sessions where the ad hoc group review the available information, and considers further information needs, and invite observers who may have technical knowledge about these products, and uh, uh, this is an opportunity for the party for the members to ask technical questions to these observers. So these are open to invited observers. The COP decision specifies the recommended qualifications of observers. So as we receive nomination or proposal for invitation of the observers from members, and we as a secretariat review these candidate observers in view of these recommended qualifications. So this is the process. If for example, the associations or some technical group, experts who may have good knowledge to contribute to this process, we would primarily expect the proposal from the members, experts in the ad hoc group, to invite these observers. So in short, we do not plan to put the detailed schedule of these group calls on the public website.
Yes, thank you, Isaku. And I have one question about the templates to submit information on products. And this question is about using similar templates on dental amalgam. So do the parties have access to a template for preparing their submissions on dental amalgam? So in my understanding, this intersessional work on review of annexes A and B and dental amalgam is a separate one, but the experts group have agreed to support the work on dental amalgam. So if parties wish to submit information following the similar structure of information, the parties may do so. Do you have any other points?
Thank you, Taka, for responding to that question. And if it would be great if you can further review the questions in the chat box. I think I noticed one a follow-up question on the exclusions and what I said about the exclusions, and what I responded was that the exclusion is within the Annex A. So it is something that may be reviewed in the Annex A and B process. So if parties are interested in reviewing this exclusion provisions, I think the expert group will be open to consider such proposals.
Thank you. I have we have another question on metal plating. So the metal plating has not been included in the current Minamata Convention, but it is found to be the major sources of mercury releases in Nepal as per the Minamata Initial Assessment Report. So what would be the process of addressing these issues, and is there any possibility to include it into the annex of the convention?
Well, I think this is a bit challenging question because Nepal is not a party yet. So since I said that this is a party-led process, and the parties were invited to submit information first, and the non-parties and other stakeholders were invited to submit information to enrich such information. But since the deadline was extended, non-parties may submit information, and it is up to the group to that decide how to handle this non-party submissions. But perhaps this is what I can say from the point of view of the Secretariat.
Thank you, Isaku. And this is the last question that I have so far. So it is about parties who ratified the convention but does not comply fully with the convention. So what is the stance of the Secretariat about those kind of parties?
Well, the Minamata Convention has a compliance mechanism in Article 15, and the implementation and compliance committee is to assist the COP and the parties in a facilitative way, so that the parties can better improve their the implementation and compliance to the convention. So I'm not sure what exactly this question is about, but those countries who ratified the convention and became a party have a legal obligation to implement the convention. So the Secretariat is would be very happy to assist these countries to the parties to enhance the implementation and compliance to the convention.
Thank you, Isaku. I think this is the questions that we have received so far.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we can, if there's no further question, we can close this session. Thank you very much for your participation, and the presentations will be posted on the website, and the questions and some answers will be also summarized and posted on the web. If you have any further questions, we would be happy to respond by email and any other means. As I noted, this is this session responds to the to the discussion at the ad hoc group, asking the secretariat to reach out to the parties and other stakeholders to take up this opportunity of the extended deadline and opportunities for submission. So we very much look forward to receiving further submissions by the 31st of July. And also with regard to the dental amalgam, we extended the deadline to the 15th of August upon request by some parties. So we look forward to receiving such information by the 15th of August. Thank you very much, and I wish you all stay safe and have a nice day or evening or whatever. Thank you very much.
Thank you.